Okay, my friends, John Wilson here. I thought we would go over some simple designs and share some wisdom about the whys, not the hows, and that we're doing digital design. So let's just do a real quick single unit and talk about why we do what we do with the designs. Let's go ahead and just say redesign. I'm going to go ahead and act like this crown hasn't been done. We're doing it in the newest version of Dental Designer. It's the 2025 version. Was on the beta team, and it's a rather stable result of hard work from guys similar to me in this industry that are looking to make a difference. So let's take a look at this case here, and let's start and let's talk about looking at the data. Well, we've got a nice IO scan. And we're going to say the occlusal alignment's good. And why does this matter? Why do I have to put the occlusal like this? Is it just for how I'm making the models? Well, no. You're going to see what we're doing here now is going to influence how it goes on the virtual articulator as well. And many people might say, well, why do you need the articulator for a single unit? Well, that's where the real magic comes in digital design, understanding how to make it not just fill the space like a Band-Aid. We're actually looking for something to rehabilitate this patient for this one tooth. All right, so let's go through it. I'm not going to go through all the stuff to trim and stuff. You guys all know how to do that. There's no real value in that. Let's just go through this real quick, and we'll kick it to the point where we're going to choose margins. Okay, well, there's a million ways for the software to calculate and do the margins, and if you're not familiar with it, let's go through it and talk about it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And if we're looking at a scan like this, everybody likes the color, it looks pretty and all of that stuff, and you think you can see the demarcation. I'm here to tell you that most times I'm designing in a monochromatic state, and I'm trying to look at the quality of the scan. Well, I can see a demarcation all the way around this unit. So it's going to be very likely I'm going to be able to create a very even and sealed margin. Well, the first thing that we're doing here is not setting the margin, but we're setting the cutout line. And a lot of people misunderstand that, but it's not as critical at this step, but I always try to keep it as nice as possible. We have a lot of different options over here. This is the default option, and if you just click on top of the die, it's going to guess. And most times it doesn't make it perfect. So I'm going to eliminate this, and then I'm going to choose this, where I'm actually clicking on the margin line. We're going to see what kind of proposal we get with this, and generally it's much better. You can see how it goes around this unit, and it's pretty darn close. Well, everybody knows that you can use this tool to fine-tune it and get everything ready to go, but like I said, this is just the cutout line at this point. So we're going to go through and you can see what it does. The cutout line is always going to be 2 millimeters or more from that margin line. So when we're going to set the path of insertion, this is a real important part. You look at this die here and we have some undercut. We have a belly here. We have this big shoulder, but you can see how the prep is undercut. And then if we're looking at this area here, we're going to have some excessive cement spacer. So it's very easy to click optimize here, and that will get it into its best position based on what the software will tell you. But I can tell you that it doesn't always work as well. So look how much block out that's going to be in that area. We have undercut there. So I can just do a visual. I'm looking at the outside edge of the margin all the way around here. And I'm looking at the belly of this tooth here. I want to make sure that it's going to be sealed. And then I go ahead and set from this direction. Now let's look at much less here, little bit on this aspect here. Where's the most critical part for a crown? Well, it's on the facial, right? So, is this more advantageous than the optimize? Well, that's up to you, and it has more to do with how it's been prepped. But I show this to you not just to rely on clicks and try to get through it. So let's go ahead and say this is okay. We're going to click with this, and now we're going to get into the real margin line here. Well, this is where you set the margin line, and you can get it as precise as you'd like, and coming through all of these areas here. This isn't what I'm trying to teach you today. I want to just get through this. Let's go ahead ahead and set the cement spacer here. The default spacer for this particular random Zerk crown is 40 and 70. That might be a little bit much. I always click on the surface noise down here, and I want to show this. So if you click the surface noise, you can see all of this area here is where the scanner has introduced some noise or has tried to fix and close a hole. So you got to be really wary of that. If it's not clean in these areas, well, it's going to jag out the margin or the cement spacer. So smooth surface noise down here. Let's preview this and let's look at our cement spacer. So remember that undercut here? Well, what's going to happen? Well, in this area, this could be very thin in that area. So you want to be really cognizant of that. So maybe I'll go back here. Let's go back to the insertion direction here, and let's go ahead and try to idealize this a little bit better. So I'm going to tilt this facially just a little bit more because I need to have the room at the margin here or we can have some problems. So I'm going to tilt it a little bit this way, and then I'm going to set it. Now you can see that it's more uniform where that big undercut is, but I have all this area here in thickness of that margin, less on this area here. Let's click it forward. Do the same thing, die interface here. Let's go ahead and preview it. Much better, not so jagged. Everything looks pretty darn good. All right. So now the fun part, most of this time we are going to bring a crown in position here. This was a case that was already proposed here. I undid all the clicks. Let's go ahead and remove this, but let's go ahead and just click any other smile library here just to be on the fun side here. And let's go ahead and just, I'll choose this one real quick. And we'll preview this and we'll bring it in and I'll say okay. All right, so let's talk about what we're doing. We're not just filling a space. The software is really set up rather simply. We want to be able to bring this in, fill the space, seal it to the margins, check to make sure that we have no inclusions on the opposing, and then deal with it. But there's a lot more to single unit dentistry than just patching them up. And that's really what this video series is going to be on. We're going to talk a little bit more about the whys, why we do things a certain way. Not just how we make a unit, but why we do it. So let's go ahead and quickly place this in a little bit more advantageous spot. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, and I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to scale this just a little bit. I'm looking at the marginal ridges. I'm looking at my central groove, and all of these things are going to be dictated once I connect the margin and then go into the virtual articulator. So a few things I'm looking for, the basic settings I'm looking for is I'm looking down that buccal corridor. I want to make sure that this is in contour. We have this look here, and it's going to match up to this. If I look on the far side, we're lucky enough to have a full arch scan, and with that, we can make some better choices. I want to look at the anatomy. Is it similar? Am I just bulling it up to bull it up, or is it similar to the adjacent morphology? And it is. All right, so very clearly here, I need to scale this just a little bit, and I'm going to look at the marginal ridges. I haven't even connected the dots, haven't done really anything to this. Let's look at the opposing and how it's coming in here. All that's about right. But how can we make this better? Well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to connect it real quick. And my margin line's offset, always going to be under, 0.1. I'm going to do 0.8 on most zirconias. And I'm going to show you what that means if you don't understand that. So the margin line offset is this area here, this little part here that controls the zirconia from chipping in those areas. See, we're a little thin in this area. We can use all of these tools over here to make better choices on our design file. So you can see here where that cement spacer was. And if we look at the contour, well, it's going to look like it's going to be over contoured if we're not careful here. But the very easy way for us to do it is use these sliders and then just go ahead and bring out the belly here a little bit here. Come in here to our favorite tool, the tweezers, and I'm going to go zip this down. I'm going to go ahead and push Control, and I'm going to bring this up. And I'm not going just to add a lot of morphology here. I'm not going to take it away. I'm not going to smooth it. And I'm definitely not going to use those tools to auto cut things. And I'm going to show you why. So There's a few things that we can see quite clearly here when we're looking at our proximal contacts. Why do those matter so much? Well, proximal contacts have a lot to do with how food is going to be either impacted interproximally or how easy it is to clean these areas. And there's some very built-in tools here to help it. Well, most beginning designers are just going to go to this thing and use the cheat sheet here and cut it and see that now, we have minimal contact points at those things. And it's definitely way below the marginal ridge, and that's not an ideal contact. I'm going to go ahead and exclude that. Come back into our model form here, and let's go ahead and take a look at it. Well, first thing that I'm going to do is even before I start looking at function, I'm looking at where that cusp is going to come through here and why the marginal ridges lining up are so important. You can see that, if we're looking from the lingual here, we have a little bit of a space here on the more anterior tooth here. But think about when they slide in protrusive, it's going to hit that marginal ridge if I'm not careful. So what I'm going to do is with this tweezer tool, my favorite tool inside of 3shape, is I'm going to pull it up here and I'm going to pull it down here just a little bit. Okay, I want this contact to be rounded. I want it to emerge. I want this papilla to have space. I don't want to choke it off. So real quickly, before I even work the contacts, I'm going to come down to this margin line and I'm just going to smooth this. So it's the nicest transition back to that margin that we've chose. Okay, so now we have contacts here. Well, if you're not familiar with these tools over here, let's go ahead and introduce them to you. If you click on this, it's going to allow you to adjust it to the adjacent units. So if I'm here and I'm on the minus tool and I've got this picked, you can see what it's going to do. It's only going to take away where it's encroaching on that tooth. Well, that's all well and good, but what happens when we have a undercut here that's under that aspect of it? Well, we have to fix the draw. So the first thing I do is I come back here with this tool and I'm setting it to 0. Seems like that's counterintuitive. You're going to have a light contact. Well, I'm going to show you how I'm going to overcome that aspect. So let's first think about these adjacent contacts. Are they managed properly? Did we get a good scan? Is there something that I can improve if I talk to my client about how these teeth are in proximal contact with my new restoration? All right, well, it is pretty darn good. But now if we use the number 7 preset here and shadow this out, you're going to see the path of draw based on this information where it's coming seeding down. Now you can see that now this is encroaching there, right? So let's go ahead and smooth this down just a little bit. We're going to smooth this out. And if you want to reduce it, you can just ever so slightly in these areas here. Same with this side. And now let's go ahead and just get it to any other preset that doesn't have this. And let's go ahead and remove this and get rid of those contact points. Okay, so now we don't want to have concavities. There's a big thing about that for the contacts to be easy. The idea for this is to make the delivery on these really predictable and simple. Well, we're going to add some thickness in glaze when we're doing this. And if we're leaving concavities like this, the tooth is going to wedge. And very often when the temporaries aren't managed properly, you're going to have a light contact. But you can see right here at the height of contour, I have it coming down, I have it coming down. All those things are super, super important. All right, so let's say that we have the contacts managed to this point, and I'm going to move forward with the occlusion. What I'm looking for is 2 things. Let's go back to those thick and thin areas. I have my minimum thickness based on this at just a little more than 4/10. I have no issues with those things, so I'm going to go ahead and just fix this little bit. And I'm not adding, I'm not destroying the morphology, I'm not smoothing it all out horribly. I'm very selectively moving where I need to get thickness. Now we have to be really understanding that, we're doing a reductive technology on this. Well, reductive technology, there's going to be some limitations, right? your drill comp is going to have hard times getting in some of these areas. We can bull that up. We can open it up just a little bit more, get some more detail in this aspect of it. Design with purpose to try to replicate the pattern so there's not undermilled areas. So this bicuspid looks pretty good at this point, and I haven't even talked about occlusion at all. Occlusion is the last thing that I work. I'm coming in here, I'm just trying to clean up some of the little jags in these triangles, put a little more power in here. And now let's go ahead and bring the opposing in and look at where my contact points are, okay? Nothing is including here. I have a very similar buccal cusp arrangement that's looking down the buccal corridor. If I look on the contralateral side, it's very similar as well. I want to look for buccal overlap. This is really important so that they don't catch their cheek or bite their tongue. We need to make sure that it's not encroaching. This area here, this little freeway space, is going to be really powerful for function and to allow your clients not to have to adjust much in these areas. So let's put it on the virtual articulator and see what the heck happens, okay? So we're going to go ahead and bring the virtual articulator in here. Remember I told you that plane of occlusion, how that matters? It's idealizing this on a very specific articulator with all average values here. Well, how does that make a difference? Well, I'm going to try to make this go into a lateral excursion, but I'm going to follow it guided by the design itself. And let's see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the articulator. I'm going to hide the opposing. I'm just going to look at this function, and I'm going to put it in motion. Okay, so you can see that on lateral, I do have some contacts. I have no centric stopping points here. But the reason why I don't make hard occlusion there is because I'm looking at adjacent contacts. I'm looking at adjacent morphology. Do I have hard contact everywhere else? So if I put this in hard contact, what would happen? Well, you can see that this is out of occlusion on this side. And we have to remember that teeth are inside, they have a periodontal ligament that's floating and compressible. So I want to use the information around here to make this crown easy to deliver, but function and last. So the first thing I'm going to do on this is I'm going to come back here. I'm not just going to go, what would happen if I just clicked on Adapt Design? I'll go ahead and put it on Reduce over here and Adapt Design. Let's look at it. Is it going to actually cut this? See, it doesn't say it needs any at this particular point, but I know in a lateral excursion, it's running on this area, right? So I'm going to come back here ever so slightly, and I'm just going to pull this in. And then I'm going to run the articulator one more time and see how light that contact is. I'm not eliminating it because I definitely want to have it. But all the areas where your client is going to have to adjust are mitigated at this point. Most importantly, these marginal ridges line up. I have good rounded contacts coming into the proximal, and it's going to be rather easy for this case to be finished and milled. It's going to be predictable in that manner. And I can promise you this. If you take the time and look at it like I've described it to you, I'm spending 17 minutes talking about a single unit. And why this is important is because this transcends just filling the space and making a Band-Aid restoration. All of these things are going to aid you in being a better technician and a better digital designer. So until next time, guys, I just want to say thank you for your time and attention. If you have any comments, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me to know that actually this is actually being seen by people. And again, if there's anything you'd like to see specifically, I'd love to be able to provide that for you. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.